Hi, kids. Okay, greatest film of all time. Number one on this list. You can disagree. I will too. It is The Godfather. 1972, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, James Caan, Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton, Talia Shire, Abe Vigoda, John Cazale, Sterling Hayden. The list goes on and on and on. So now you look at that, you say, yeah, greatest film of all time. I can see that cast, that director. At the time, though, it's 1971, and you look at this, there is no indication whatsoever that this film is going to be number one on a list like this, or that it's going to be the highest grossing film of all time when it comes out. No indication whatsoever. Um, there was not really mob films didn't do that. Mob films are gangster films, the 30s and 40s, mostly what we refer to sometimes now as film noirs. Um, Not really a hit like that. Francis Ford Coppola, um, not really um, overly successful director at this point, more successful as a screenwriter than he was as a director. Al Pacino, this is only his third feature, had a bit part in one, starred in another. Um, so there's no indication that he would be a good lead. Diane Keaton, same thing, kind of an eccentric actress, mostly did bit parts in TV up to this point. James Caan and Robert Duvall had just done a film with Coppola, but again, they were guys that had been in the business for a while, about 10 years, still doing television work. Marlon Brando had kind of let his career go away, right? Came out of the gate, first 5 years, first or five films rather, just put everything into it, and then just no, nobody. He hadn't been in anything that anyone wanted to see in what 10 years. So there was no indication. Let's get into it. So it's based on a novel by Mario Puzo. Mario Puzo, I think it's about his fifth novel. Puzo writes the Godfather novel because he needs money. So he's trying to write something that will be a hit, page turner that people will buy, something salacious, something filled with sex and violence. So that's what he does, and it's a hit. He needs the money because he's got a gambling problem. And then when the studio comes and says, "Hey, we want to make this film," and he says, "Okay, give me the money." Needs the money, gambling problem. So they looked at a number of directors before Coppola finally gets hired. Coppola gets hired basically for two reasons. One, Paramount decided that it'd be a good idea to have an Italian director direct this movie. So he's got that. And secondly, well, another part is other Italian directors that they wanted said no, and he was affordable. We've seen this come up on this list before. Milos Forman in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Um, he was affordable. So Coppola was affordable. He gets hired, but he has to fight for everything. He has to fight for Pacino. They don't want Pacino as the lead. Who's this Pacino guy? He's been in Panic in Needle Park, and that's it. They don't want Brando. They have to kind of screen test Brando without Brando knowing that he's doing a screen test. So, anyways, what Coppola does, Coppola and Puzo write the screenplay. They each, as we've seen on this list, write their own version of the screenplay, and then Coppola kind of comes and puts them two together. But more importantly, for the production of the film, Coppola has his Godfather notebook. So what he did is he read the novel, but as he's reading it for the first time, he goes and he just writes inside the margins or underlines his impressions of the book as he's reading it, his very first fresh impressions. So he does that, and then he goes and he takes the book and he takes the pages of the book out and he puts them basically in like a scrapbook. And then he writes things on the scrapbook, on the pages. So it's a concept that he had gotten from Elia Kazan, that he saw Kazan had done when he adapted Streetcar. Streetcar, he did, directed the play, directed the film. So he broke it down, I believe, into 5 different parts. So he would break it down, the synopsis. So every page would go over what is happening at that point in the story. He would break down the time period. So he'd research what was going on at that time in America. So what is relevant to the story that way. So when he makes it, he wants to make it feel real. It's not taking place now, it's in the 30s or the 40s or whenever that scene is taking place. And then he wanted to take note of the tone and the imagery being used. Those were important to him. And then the pitfalls that could happen in telling a story, how you could do this scene wrong, how it could come across as funny or not serious or not scary. He took a lot of notes or called back to Hitchcock in the way he would play out the scenes, the drama of the scenes. He'd really want you to pay attention to certain things. So he would write in his notebook that, okay, so we want the audience to know this. So explicitly make sure that you show them this. Another aspect is Coppola really needed the money also. He had put a lot of money into THX 1138, Lucasfilm. So he needed the money. So he needed a job. So he couldn't let this one pass him by, but he also needed a break. He needed to prove that he could direct a picture, a big picture like this. By the way, Lucas also needed to prove something, so that's why he goes with the advice of Coppola and makes American Graffiti. And then the two of them can just take all the money after this point. So they do 2 weeks of rehearsal, get into character. The studio wanted them to shoot in Kansas. The studio wanted it to take place in the 70s. But Coppola had done all that research in his Godfather notebook. He had already invested so much time in it. No. And then the notebook also made it easier when he was writing the screenplay because he knew what he would want to pay attention to for the screenplay. And on set, he paid more attention to his notebook than he did the script. So it comes out, and it is the highest grossing movie ever up to that point in 1972. Huge success. Everyone becomes a star. So it's on this list because AFI's list in 98 is number 3. In 2007 is number 2. On IMDb, according to you, it is number 2. On Metacritic, according to critics' reviews, it is number 2. British Film Institute, 2012, it was 21 on the critics list, 7 on the director's list, and then last year it is 12 on the critics list and number 3 on the director's list. So the highest it is on any of these lists is 21. That's why it's number 1. I think Citizen Kane was 96 on one of those lists. So that basically comes down to being the difference between these two films. But in the ratings, if you're rating it off of these that I am, there's a big gap between The Godfather and Citizen Kane and everything else according to this, what is challenging, the greatest film of all time. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share it, tell your friends, comment. You like Godfather 1 or Godfather 2 better? Or is the conversation better?